What's going on out here? It's Venus Love, aka Sword Fan Chick, back in here with another video. And for all of y'all out there that have watched some of my other videos, you probably know by now, I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan. Yes, I am a fan of the series. Been a fan of the series since 2002 when Kingdom Hearts was initially released. So I wanted to do a couple of videos dedicated to Kingdom Hearts, starting a new Kingdom Hearts series on this channel, especially because now the Dark Seeker saga is finally ended. Yes! The game franchise. So far it's been one crazy ride, but no matter what, the game series always managed to have plenty of charming and whimsical characters, deep and intricate storylines, as well as easy and lovable gameplay mechanics. And now that the Dark Seeker saga is finished, I thought that I'd do a video ranking of all the games in the franchise so far. Just a fair warning, there will be spoilers, just to, further explain my point of view. And I still encourage you to play some of the best of the games. I probably won't have as many spoilers with my top faves, but there will be spoilers. Okay? Just to let you know. Oh, another tidbit. Please, try not to get triggered. This is my personal perspective. It is not a general fact. It's a perspective. It's an opinion-based commentary. Okay? So you're welcome to have a different opinion, and you're welcome to comment your opinions down below. So, without further ado, let me not even drag this intro on any further. Let's just get into it. Coming in at number 1 is Kingdom Hearts. In my opinion, it's still the best game in the franchise. Why? First of all, let's talk about that story. It is, quite frankly, the only game in the franchise with a smooth and charming story that's both complex and easy to follow. The story was suspenseful and always made me want to know what will happen next. True to its slogan. To add, the Disney worlds and characters, as well as the Final Fantasy characters, were implemented well within the storyline, with each world and character teaching Sora valuable lessons that would help him on his journey. And this game had some of the most moving and emotional moments without forcing a random plot twist. Everything felt naturally, and that's why I really enjoyed the story of this game so much. Speaking of the worlds, can I say that world exploration in this game was actually fun? While the worlds weren't necessarily the best designed in the franchise overall, the worlds offered more than just empty spaces for combat. The world's environment added to the overall gameplay, like swinging through vines, swimming in the water, flying in the air, and there were plenty of puzzles and secret passages to explore as well. Not to mention, these worlds were based off of some of the most iconic Disney characters and villains, as well as the most iconic Final Fantasy characters. So my nostalgic inner fangirl still eats it all up. The music is also still the most emotionally versatile of all the other games, giving both suspense, intensity, sadness, thought, and a little silliness sometimes, all at the same time. And Hickory, Simple and Clean, is still the best theme song of the Kingdom Hearts franchise, in my opinion. Sorry, not sorry. In my opinion. And finally, the dialogue in this game is still the smoothest in the franchise. It just feels so natural, which makes it easier to relate and understand the characters. The voice acting was really good this time around. Sora's characterization is also better in this game than in others. In the other games of the series, Sora's silliness is kind of taken too far, random and immature at times. Whereas in the original Kingdom Hearts game, Sora was absent-minded and he did have a silly side, but most of the time he was a pretty chill dude. He never overacted or overreacted. While I do have my criticisms of some aspects of the game, such as the faulty game design and odd world locations, Monstro would be one, as well as lackluster gummy ship travel, overall the game was extremely enjoyable, and it is the very reason why I became a Kingdom Hearts fan from the start. It's because of this game that I'm still here. No matter what other games come into the series that may not be up to par, it's because of this game that I was able to see Nomura's true vision. And I want to see more of this vision, and I hope that the Square Enix team will reflect on the original game and its charms. By the way, Kingdom Hearts is the only game in the franchise that didn't need a final mix to have engaging boss battles and plenty of post-game content. Basically, Final Mix was the icing on the cake. Overall, the game gets a 9.5 out of 10 for smooth and engaging story, smooth character evolution, interactive world environments that give plenty of things to unravel and explore, worlds that connect well with the main story, intense to challenging battlegrounds, versatile music soundtrack, plenty of post-game content, balanced Disney and Square Enix elements, and smooth and natural dialogue. The only issues with this game is level world designs and boring gummy ship challenge and minigames. Coming in at number 2 is Birth by Sleep. And I'm going to include Birth by Sleep Final Mix in this because they're basically the same game. Just Final Mix has a little bit more content. Okay? But overall, I'm talking about Birth by Sleep as a concept in the franchise. Okay? So, Birth by Sleep, yeah, it had a lot of gems in my opinion. I really enjoyed playing as 3 different characters. It gave you a chance to try a variety of different gameplay styles. While combat was on the floaty side, the new abilities and command styles made up for it, because they were just fun to play. I'm sorry. This game had the most intense boss battles of all the Kingdom Hearts games, hands down. And since I love challenges, I enjoyed every minute of them. I had some serious satisfaction after beating them. I also enjoyed the deck command system and, you could stock the commands you wanted to use to fight. The only downside was that you were limited to only the command stock, which means sometimes things got a little repetitive. Of course, there was a lot to do in Birth by Sleep. There was something for everyone, especially when it came to post-game content, and especially after the Final Mix version. You had the board game, you had the minor arena, you had racing, you could even do Monstro in the arena, and you had plenty of secret bosses, plenty. So the game, it put me on edge every step of the way, which is what I like. Speaking of engaging and interesting and putting me on edge, I find the Birth by Sleep story to be one of the best in the franchise because of that. The story had all the emotions and suspense of the original Kingdom Hearts game, but this time, it had 3 different perspectives, which was refreshing. The build-up was done well, always leaving me eager for more. The worlds, while they weren't implemented as well into the main story, the world's design had an expansive layout, and each character was given a chance to explore new areas within their respective stories. The worlds were interactive just like in Kingdom Hearts 1, where the environment of the worlds could be used during gameplay. The only thing missing were the puzzles that I enjoy so much. There was also a limited amount of worlds, but considering it started off as a portable game, I was okay with that. The worlds were still rather enjoyable, and visiting them from 3 different viewpoints made up for it, because new areas of those worlds would be unlocked. The music. Yes, let's talk about the music. The music was everything. It is possibly one of the best in the franchise. This is literally the only soundtrack in the franchise that I actually can listen to over and over again because of the versatile feelings and emotions I get when I listen to it, And this is also the first game in the franchise to have a female lead character. Not to mention with such an important position, by the way, which honestly in the other games, the only important females were the female villains. Just saying. And finally, in regards to dialogue, the game's voice acting was a bit stiff, but the script was actually pretty good. So overall, the game gets a 9 out of 10 for unique characters, beautiful and engaging stories from various different points of view, more playable characters with their own unique combat styles, customizable gameplay options, a large amount of post-game content, great collection of new worlds with plenty to explore and interact with, and a deep and meaningful soundtrack. Its greatest flaws were the limited amount of worlds, floaty combat, and no gummy type exploration between worlds. Shucks. And I think it would have been cool to have it, because then they could have made use of the Keyblade glider and showed some really, really cool battle functions, unique to each character, but another missed opportunity by Square Enix. Oh well, still a good game. Coming in at number 3 is Kingdom Hearts 3. Yes, the game that has the fandom divided. Yeah, that's because, there were a lot of high expectations of this game. Long waits and a lot of hype. But honestly, when I compare it to some of the other Kingdom Hearts games, Kingdom Hearts 3 is actually pretty solid. First off, the game's mechanics are actually pretty fun to use, and there's a lot of versatility here. The Keyblades are distinctly unique from each other with their own stats and their own forms. In other words, they don't seem like the same Keyblade with different skins. And while certain things do activate certain functions, and some people might find that annoying, you might hit a Heartless and suddenly activate attractions, but you're not really forced to use these reactionary mechanics, so you kind of make the choice on what kind of gameplay you want to use in this game. I do believe that the game was more challenging, and the game forced us to work for new attractions or forms instead of just receiving them when at the ready, then using them would have been more fulfilling and thus more enjoyable. But overall, the gameplay was fun to use against the enemies and honestly was so creatively done. I also like the links just as much as summons. Some were better than others, just like summons, with Simba being one of the most useful of the links in the game. Of course, this game offers so much versatility as far as gameplay. It's not all just Keyblade swinging combat like what's found in some of the other Kingdom Hearts games. You actually get a chance to try many different methods of combat, like battleships, Baymax flying and fighting, and Gigas fighting as well. I think with the stronger difficulty, all these mechanics will be appreciated more in the long run, like I said earlier. Fortunately for us, Nomura is upping the difficulty as well as giving us critical mode. He even says crit mode will offer unique challenges than just being harder boss battles, so we'll just have to wait and see. And of course, there are plenty of things to do post-game, even if some fans would prefer more challenging post-game content. I personally did like the chilled mini-games after a long day of work. I like the various collectible items that encourage me to explore the beautiful worlds, and Classic Kingdom is definitely a unique way for Nomura to introduce his own childhood to others. The battle gates were also really fun to play. I would have liked more secret bosses though, and maybe an arena, but maybe we'll get more of those in the future. Now, in regards to the worlds, I was in love, okay? The worlds offer so much to explore, so many secret areas to uncover, and plenty of things to collect, which is very similar to the world setup in Kingdom Hearts 1. The worlds also have unique features exclusive to each of them, making them seem like several different games in one game. The design of the worlds were extremely creative. You can tell the creators really took the time to create the perfect battlegrounds for Sora. There are also loads of ways to make use of the environment, so the interactive quality is on point. I definitely have to say the world's designs in this game are the greatest of all the games. Even the Gummy Ship space felt like its own interactive world where you had so much freedom to navigate and collect what you want. You could even take pictures of constellations, and upgrading was easier for me to understand. Like, I could make a blueprint and understand what I'm doing more in Kingdom Hearts 3 than I could in past games. So that was really refreshing. The only issue with the Gummy Ship were the mechanics. Okay, the Gummy Ship mechanics were faulty and kind of too sensitive, especially in closed spaces. Because when you're going towards the last world of the game, it's really difficult to navigate and avoid obstacles without getting turned around. So I really think they need to tighten those mechanics just a bit. But the Gummy Ship space itself was really, really awesome. While the Disney worlds were fantastic and massive, my biggest disappointment was that the Kingdom Hearts original worlds were not as explorative. Since Nomura is making a Final Fix DLC package this year, I'm hoping that maybe Nomura will definitely expand on Land of Departure, and maybe we can finally go to Radiant Garden. Here's an idea: make Riku's story unlockable so we can visit Radiant Garden with him as a playable character. Now that would surely make up for it, and we might even be able to see more of the Realm of Darkness. Yeah, I would like that idea. As far as the story goes, needless to say, the past games, they kind of convoluted the story so much to the point I didn't really expect this story to be smooth sailing. I mean, don't get me wrong, the story throughout it all, man, in Kingdom Hearts there were so many moving moments that left me feeling a well of emotions. I think I cried so many times, which I hadn't done that since Kingdom Hearts 1. But the pacing of the story and the characterization of some of the characters, like Kairi for example, was frustrating. What I will say is that at least Sora had some sort of evolution from the places he journeyed to. And he was finally able to learn what it means to have the power of waking. I also liked how Sora, Donald, and Goofy's relationship evolved. You know, they had a really strong bond, stronger than in any of the Kingdom Hearts games, which rightly so because Sora has spent most of his journey with these two. Unfortunately, Sora's compliance with the world order, as well as his need to go on this personal journey of self-discovery, made his relationship with other characters seem rather distant. And it may have been intentional, because you know, when he goes to the 100-Acre Wood, spoiler alert, Pooh actually mentions that Sora seems so distant now. You know, so again, this may have been intentional. But regardless of whether it was intentional or unintentional, it kind of made Sora's relationship with the Disney characters seem less developed. You know, he seemed to watch more than engage. And so he couldn't really develop a bond with a lot of the Disney characters. I think if they had paced the story a little bit more, it would have been received better though. You know, there was not a lot happening in the beginning, and there was way too much happening at the end. So maybe they should, if they ever do this with DLC packaging or Final Fix, they should probably put a little more in the beginning to kind of even out the story. But at least the story was engaging and interesting, and the ending left me pondering and intrigued, which I love. And I honestly liked the way the worlds had stories that tied into the overall story plot. It wasn't as smooth as with Kingdom Hearts 1, but I don't know if people noticed, but each world in Kingdom Hearts 3 had a story about awakening those who had fallen, which is very synonymous to Sora's own journey to find the power of waking. You know, I like that tie-in. You know, even though, like I said, it didn't exactly have anything to do with the story in the sense that it was a part of the story, but it tied in well with the plot, showing that the company carefully chose these worlds as their stories. You know, I only wish that the org members were actual boss battles instead of just guest appearances. You know, it would have given my visit to the worlds more suspense. You know, and considering the fact that we had less powerful Disney villains this time around, fighting the org members in those different Disney worlds would have made up for it. Don't get me wrong, I love the creative, heartless, nobody unversed battles in the game, but I think fighting the org members in the Disney worlds would have given us kind of, you know, human battles with dialogue, because those type of battles, they seem to have more life. So I would have liked to see that too, a little bit more in the game. Now, going on to the music. The music is definitely one of the best. I like the worlds, you know, I like the world's music, the theme music, and it's cool how the theme music would change up depending on the circumstance. The music made me feel in the moment with every turn. I'm also going to say that the music was versatile. You know, there was so much variety of sentimental and epic songs in this collection. You know, there was a little bit of old and a little bit of new, and even the old songs had a newer touch. You know, even the theme songs, like Face My Fears and Don't Think Twice, they were both unique and emotionally grasping. Every time I listen to them, I just feel a tingle down my spine. And even the older songs, you know, they give me such a rush. A nostalgic feeling, but a rush at the same time. The dubbed voice acting. Let's talk about the dub. So let me just say that it was awkward. Yeah, it was definitely awkward at times because there were a lot of pauses in between. It seemed like the loading frames were making it a little challenging to make it seem natural. But what I will say is that there were a lot of iconic moments of dialogue that made me laugh and made me cry at the same time. You know, so I think that the script really did a good job of developing the emotional parts of the game. But, you know, you can only do so much when the story is convoluted. So for what it's worth, for what the story was like, I think the script fit the tone very nicely. Just the dubbing was extremely awkward. Overall, the game gets an 8 out of 10 for great world design and beautiful visuals, thoughtful world implementation, fun and creative combat system, a versatile selection of post-game content including both mini-games, collectibles, and battle gates, and versatile music soundtrack. The downsides to this game include a poorly paced story, poor characterization of some of the other protagonists in the story, lack of difficulty, which may be improved with time, and awkward voice acting and dubbing. The game has a few missed opportunities, but luckily these things can be improved on without waiting years to get, thanks to DLCs. And hopefully maybe we'll add a little bit of more Square Enix cameos, like from The World Ends With You and Final Fantasy in the future. I would like to see that. Another thing that I mean to add, it's the reason why it's an 8 out of 10, is because of this reason. Not enough Square Enix energy. Unless you include the Kingdom Hearts original characters. But I would like a little bit more Square Enix energy. Okay? So 8 out of 10. It's a pretty decent game. Has a lot of fun aspects to it. But they could do more with the story and have a little bit more cameos. Coming in at number 4 is Kingdom Hearts 2. Oh, I know there are going to be a lot of triggered fanboys, you know, the nostalgic ones who believe this is the best game in the series. How could you possibly think anything less of this game? Well, I guess I was a lot older than most fans that played Kingdom Hearts 2 back in 2005, so maybe I don't have that same sense of nostalgia for it. That might have something to do with why I see this game a little differently from some of the younger fans. But it still was a pretty decent game, especially after Final Mix. I find Kingdom Hearts 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3 to be opposites, you know? Where Kingdom Hearts 2 failed, Kingdom Hearts 3 succeeded. Where Kingdom Hearts 3 failed, Kingdom Hearts 2 succeeded. But overall, to me, Kingdom Hearts 2 is 4th on my ranking system. Let me break down what I think about this game. The gameplay was really fun. It was really fun. The mechanics were really fun to use, and leveling up combat added to the fun of it all. Also, the gameplay was most certainly not floaty. You could easily bounce back after giving a string of combos without floating in the air. Sora was extremely overpowered in Kingdom Hearts 2 though, which was both a good thing and a bad thing, especially if you played Kingdom Hearts 2 before Final Mix. See, before Final Mix, the game's difficulty was not there, so defeating boss battles were relatively easy. Even in Final Mix, aside from the secret bosses, the main boss battles didn't require much strategy or thought. In fact, the boss battles were not extremely creative, and typically if you use reaction commands, you do a lot of damage with just that alone. You know, the boss battles tactics were pretty repetitive. While reaction commands were visually epic, it made some of the boss battles seem too simplistic, hence why fans back in the day didn't even want reaction commands in future Kingdom Hearts titles. The drive forms really gave you a chance to try new combat mechanics in a really epic way, so I did like the drive forms. And when leveling up the forms, you were rewarded with higher versions of Sora's basic abilities like jump, air slide, glide, you know, those types of things. This was both a blessing and a curse though, because a lot of the time I would beat the boss battles before ever using my drive forms, so I'd have to grind and defeat all these Heartless in order to level them up, to actually attain glide or aerial dodge or air slide or stuff like that. Or you'd have to defeat nobodies. It depended on each form had its own requirements, so it depended on the requirement that it had to level it up. And sometimes it was a blessing and a curse, because I would find myself in a world where there's hardly no nobodies or hardly no Heartless, and so I'd have to travel all around and grind and fight all these different Heartless nobodies in different worlds just to level this stuff up. And for the most part it was fun, but sometimes it was irritating. What did massively disappoint me was that the most useful mechanic, dodge roll, wasn't in the original one. I remember playing Kingdom Hearts 2 and there was no dodge roll. That completely disappointed me. So I am glad that Final Mix brought dodge roll into the mix, and they even brought some of the Kingdom Hearts 1 mechanics through limit form. But before Final Mix saved it, woo! I remember we were gladly missing that dodge roll, because dodge roll to me is such an easier mechanic to use to avoid enemy attacks. Way easier than aerial dodge, in my opinion. Way easier than air slide. Like air slide has a lag that kind of makes you open for attack. So dodge roll to me was such a great mechanic from Kingdom Hearts 1 that when they didn't put it in Kingdom Hearts 2, I was like, oh my god, mad. But I am glad they added it in Final Mix. What I will say is, before Final Mix, there was no post-game content. There was only Sephiroth as a secret boss and Colosseum, which I'm not really a big fan of the Colosseums because I find them to be extremely repetitive. I mean, I like Minor Arena and Birth by Sleep a little better than Colosseum because the rewards and like there were newer bosses to fight with interesting, tactics of attack. Whereas in the Colosseums, I feel like the final bosses are like Rock Titan or something like that. But at least Final Mix was able to give us plenty of post-game content full of secret bosses that were challenging. Final Mix also managed to give more exploration to worlds like Radiant Garden, thanks to the Cavern of Remembrance. Unfortunately, it took us, people in the western parts of the world, years to get the Final Mix version, which really left a sour taste in my mouth. I guess I just never bounced back into the, oh, now I love Kingdom Hearts 2 thing because the original was just so lacking. But at least we did get a lot of post-game content from Final Mix. Going into world exploration, let's talk about that. Speaking of world exploration, I will say, honestly, there wasn't much to explore as far as the worlds go. The worlds were literally a house with 5 rooms. They were literally empty spaces to perform combat with nothing to explore and nothing to discover. Of course, I do think some worlds had some unique features visually, especially worlds like Timeless River, Pride Lands, and even Space Paranoids or Port Royal. But the lack of things to explore and discover made revisits a chore and a bore. Here you are trying to grind for level ups, yet feeling bored so easily visiting these worlds because there's nothing to them but heartless and nobodies. With an exception of a few, most of them lacked creativity and heart, honestly, especially some of the returning worlds like Agrabah. Of course, there was still some life to them due to the colorful natures of the characters and visuals. Each world visually looked unique from each other as well, which is a good thing. But unfortunately, while the worlds looked unique from each other, the worlds were designed pretty much the same as far as layout goes. All of them were just plain flat. While this game had the most worlds of all the games so far, quality was lacking. And for me, I'd take quality over quantity any day. The Gummy Ship was more fun in Kingdom Hearts 2 than in Kingdom Hearts 1 because you could at least rank and get special Gummy upgrades. Of course, it was more restrictive than Kingdom Hearts 3, but it was still really fun. That I will say about the Gummy Ship. Now, let's talk about the story. Let me just be honest, to me, there really wasn't one. Okay? First of all, Sora's journey focused on him finding Riku's whereabouts while attempting to stop the Organization 13. That's the story in the nutshell. The story is basically a wild goose chase with a few plot twists to keep the gamer engaged. That's how I felt the whole time. And before you all try to compare it to Sora's journey to find Riku and Kairi in Kingdom Hearts 1, let me just explain that Kingdom Hearts 1's story started with Sora looking for his friends, but his journey comes with peril as he's led into complicated relationships involving the very 2 friends he had been searching for. Not to mention the main villains who are the driving force behind those complications. Whereas in Kingdom Hearts 2, Sora literally spent most of the game looking for Riku, while the main villains really felt more like obstacles in the way. They really didn't honestly have anything to do with Sora's journey to find Riku. They were just in the way. The story really dragged in the beginning too. I will say that. The entire beginning of Sora's story was him looking for Riku. But unfortunately, because we were going in all these Disney worlds and most of the Disney worlds had nothing to do with the story, we basically spent most of the beginning of the game not discovering anything new or interesting otherwise. all the way until we went to Radiant Garden's second visit. Then after that, the story dragged on again because we had to revisit all those worlds all over again, with yet again nothing really interesting being revealed leading to the main story. We fought a bunch of people in the way, but after the second visit to Land of Dragons, the other Disney worlds became mindless filler. Like, they were literally filler worlds, especially Atlantica. Ugh. Going back to Radiant Garden. So, Radiant Garden had one of the most epic moments of the game, but in my opinion, most of the stuff that happened there was unnecessary and not really important to Sora's overall journey to find Riku. I mean, we honestly didn't discover anything about Riku in that world. We discovered more about Xemnas, okay? Which I don't understand why. Like, what was the point in telling us that Xemnas was the nobody of some guy pretending to be the real Ansem? Why is that important to the main character's journey to find Riku? They never made that connection. It was just an unnecessary plot twist that greatly complicated the overall story. To add, it wasn't, again, important. It wasn't important for me to know. There are a lot of plot holes in Kingdom Hearts 2. For example, time travel. Oh yes, you thought Dream Drop Distance was the one that introduced time travel? Oh no, it was Kingdom Hearts 2 that introduced the idea behind time travel. And you know, I would have been okay for them to introduce this for the sake of bringing Timeless River into it. But honestly, there was no real explanation as to how Pete was able to make a time portal. And what's interesting is that it totally conflicts with future ideas behind time travel in the Kingdom Hearts universe, because in other games after that, it says you basically have to leave your body in order to time travel. But in Kingdom Hearts 2, Pete did that just fine without giving up his body. So, I don't know, the whole time travel aspect is very jarring, and it started with Kingdom Hearts 2. It was jarring in Kingdom Hearts 2, and it went on to be jarring in other games. And another thing that was a major plot hole was how Maleficent was possibly able to come back to life. Like, I get it, she is one of the most iconic Disney villains. I mean, what would a Kingdom Hearts game be without Maleficent? But I feel like they could have given a better reason or a better way for her to return. Like, somehow memories. Oh, the memories are making her come back somehow. Like, that was just so random. They could have done that in such a better way. I can think of a myriad of ways I could have brought Maleficent back into the picture. A myriad of ways. Ah, goodness. Despite the story's flaws, what I will say is that the game has some of the most compelling characters within the series. Yes. In fact, the charming nature of the characters is what saves the story's lack of real plot. Because the characters had such lively personalities, and because Sora already knew most of the characters he visited, Sora's interactions were fun to experience in this game and pretty familiar. And Roxas was the most compelling new character of the game. In fact, Roxas' story arc is the most compelling part of the game's story as well. You know, it was cool to see from a different perspective, because we were kind of used to mostly focusing on the Destiny Island crew. But this time, we started in a whole new world, which was Twilight Town. So it was cool to see a whole new gang of kids. Twilight Town kids were refreshing to get to know. However, I do feel as if there were no real efforts to make Roxas' story arc important to Sora's journey. It was more like a side situation that Sora heard about, but it didn't actually end up affecting Sora in any major way. I mean, he got his memories back, but that's it. Like, I feel like all of that could have been done without us getting to know Roxas. It was just so weird how they made us get to know Roxas' story and everything that happened, only for Roxas' story to not have any importance to the main story overall. It was disappointing. It was very disappointing. What bothered me the most about this story, though, what bothered me the most about the characterization was Sora's lack of evolution. Oh my god. As a character, he didn't learn, he didn't grow. He had the least amount of growth and evolution in Kingdom Hearts 2. And this might be because, throughout his journey, he mostly went to familiar Disney worlds, and the worlds didn't really have any connection to the overall story, so he didn't really learn anything that would help him with his journey. So he just basically was stuck on stupid the whole game, you know? And that's another thing about the Disney worlds. They really felt randomly chosen because they didn't honestly have any connection whatsoever to the main story plot. They didn't even have any symbolic connection. Like in Kingdom Hearts 3, the worlds may not have had any importance to the story, but there were a lot of symbolic connections that Sora took from, that learned from, so that he could learn the power of waking. Whereas these worlds, I feel like Sora went to these worlds randomly for no reason. Maybe it would only to open up pathways to find Riku more. But these were basically random worlds. They weren't important to Sora's journey or growth as a character. So it basically diminished my interest in the stories of these worlds. It really did. And while the org members did visit some of these worlds from time to time, and Disney's character Pete did as well, it's just that I don't feel they had any strong significance to Sora's journey. So as a result, Sora remained a dim-witted idiot throughout, and we just go to a bunch of random worlds for the heck of it. And that's basically it. I feel like Disney really literally chose a handful of worlds because they didn't have any other choices. They honestly didn't. And if you remember, Disney actually was struggling around this time because their Disney original movies, their animated movies, were not selling that well. So that might have a lot to do with why we just got a handful of random worlds for no reason, just to pass the time away. But it really made world travel less enjoyable. Oh well, at least there was a happy ending for everyone somehow. Now, the music. Okay, the music of Kingdom Hearts 2 is one of the greatest of the franchise. In fact, in some ways it is great, the greatest of the franchise. I have to give the composers credit on this one. The game especially had some really good battle themes. But the soundtrack was not as versatile in terms of sentimentality. Maybe this might be the reason I wasn't as emotionally moved throughout the game. I think the only thought-provoking songs were Roxas' theme song and Riku's theme song. But majority of the soundtrack was battle and field music. Still, epically fantastic. It was just lacking versatility. That's all. Now, getting down to the voice acting, it was not that great. But, I mean, come on. The dubbing hasn't been that great since Kingdom Hearts 1, as I mentioned before. So, it's not like I expect this to be any different from other games, but at the time, when Kingdom Hearts 2 first came out, it was the first game with really poor dubbing. So I think Kingdom Hearts 2 set the standard for poor dubbing. Okay? Kingdom Hearts 1 was great dubbing, then here came Kingdom Hearts 2, and the voice acting was just hot garbage. So I think Kingdom Hearts 2 is the reason why the dubbing has gone downhill, the quality of it has gone downhill, but it isn't the only one in the series. So the script itself kind of felt random at times, partially because the story was random at times. There were times when the characters would have dialogue for no reason. Like Cypher's whole dialogue with Roxas on the cliff looking for the ghost train. I don't understand why that was even happening right now. I mean, was it to keep us engaged while we sit there watching them look for the ghost train? I don't really understand, but there was a lot of dialogue for no reason in this game. And it was sometimes a frustrating waste of time to listen to awkward random dialogue. There were more unimportant conversations than important ones. At least the scriptwriter had a sense of humor, because I will say there were a lot of humorous moments in the game. Overall, the game gets a 7.5 out of 10. It has charming and familiar characters that make for some pretty entertaining interactions for Sora, great gameplay mechanics, and thanks to Final Mix, plenty of post-game content and critical mode to give the game difficulty. However, while visually appealing, the worlds are flat and uninspiring regarding design, with not much to explore or discover. Also, too many filler worlds with no real significance to the overall plot. The main boss battles were too simplistic and less creative, requiring little to no effort to defeat them due to the overpowered nature of Sora and overemphasis on reaction commands to defeat boss battles. There was no story to follow, and way too many random plot twists. And finally, Sora as a character has the lowest evolution of the series in this game. And while we had plenty of post-game content, we had to wait so many years to get a complete game. Thank God we no longer have to wait that long. But maybe next time we can get a complete game from the start, with Final Mix becoming more of the icing on the cake, like with Kingdom Hearts 1. Coming in at number 5 is Birth by Sleep 0.2 Fragmentary Passage. Yes, I know this seems to be the arc based off the Birth by Sleep concept, but one thing I know about this game is that even though it has the title Birth by Sleep, it is its own game entirely, especially because it's more so a demo made to gear us up for Kingdom Hearts 3. So it's really a collision of Birth by Sleep and Kingdom Hearts 3. And of course, even though it has aspects from both those games, it also seems to have been created with its own story, its own gameplay style, and its own world design unique from other games. So I felt the need to put this on the ranking system because it does really honestly feel like its own game. Okay? So let's start with the visuals, okay? This is the first Kingdom Hearts game that was ever on the PlayStation 4. So naturally, this game had beautifully designed levels. And each level of the game was unique, you know? Each level had its own missions, its own challenges, and so many things to discover and so many things to explore, such as the case with the mirror level. The levels of this game had highly interactive environments down to the very detail. For example, in the Thorny Forest, you had plenty of places to climb, slide through, and destroy to get to your destination. This game had a darker appeal compared to the other games. That's one thing I want to emphasize. It acted more like a horror game than an action-adventure RPG, because like crazy stuff was happening, you know? Crazy, haunting things that would drive anyone nuts, okay? Of course, because of the hollow and lonely feeling of the levels, it was easy to lose interest in returning to them once I played through them. But still, the game had a unique and eerie feeling to it that put me on edge every step of the way. While short-lived, this was oddly refreshing. As far as gameplay, the Keyblade fighting style was a bit on the floaty side, which may have to do with the fact that we're playing as a Birth by Sleep character. But the performance of the magic abilities were epic visually and mechanically easier to perform than previously, which I will say I made a lot of use of magic this time around. The customizable aspect of gameplay, however, was not as available, and so it made gameplay seem repetitive at times. I did love customizing Aqua's attire though, despite it having a limited amount of options and no serious use, but it was still cute. Speaking of playing as a Birth by Sleep character, this is the first time in the series that we actually focus solely on a female character. While in the original Birth by Sleep storyline, her story is shared with her male counterparts. Whereas in Birth by Sleep Fragmentary Passage, this is Aqua's story alone. A game focused on the strongest female in the series. Thank God. So when thinking about this story, I honestly can say it was intriguing. It was emotionally moving. It was unique, original. It was the deepest story of all the Kingdom Hearts games in the franchise. This game helped me to really understand what it means to be in darkness, both figuratively and literally, almost in a relatable sense. From Aqua's need to hold on to all the good memories just to keep sane, all the way down to her struggle to remain above water to get back to the realm of light. I couldn't help but feel a strong connection with this character's story. This game introduced another side to Aqua than just the righteous hero of the original game, Birth by Sleep game. It showed that no matter how confident, the darkness can be a heavy burden to bear, even for strong people like Aqua. This game by far had the best characterization of a main character in the series because of this. The only thing that hurt the story was the inconsistent ending, which caused a major plot hole in the Kingdom Hearts narrative overall. Mickey's passive approach to leaving Aqua in the realm of darkness alone seemed unnatural. It seemed like they wanted to introduce a party member into the game, but they wanted to give Mickey a reason to be in the realm of darkness within this time frame of the game's story. So they had no choice but to go with Mickey's initial purpose of sealing the door to darkness in Kingdom Hearts 1, only to make that feel like a shoo-in, between all the events that happened. Trying to come up with some explanation in the back of their heads as to why Mickey neglected Aqua throughout all these years, but his explanation of it all was unnatural and unsatisfying. But still, the rest of the story was good, besides the ending. The soundtrack was small, but devastatingly good, fitting very well with the game's theme. Wave of Darkness was one of those songs that really got me pumped. And then you also had some of those songs reflecting on the darkness that Aqua was experiencing. It was really intense, the soundtrack on this piece. The voice acting was still on the stiff side, but there were some improvements compared to the original Birth by Sleep. Overall, I give the game a 7 out of 10, mainly because the game was mostly a demo where we explored the nature of only one world, the realm of darkness. Of course, what I did like was that the levels within this world were distinct enough to seem like we were traveling to very different worlds. There weren't a lot of customizable gameplay options, so gameplay was repetitive and unfortunately floaty. The story was actually really deep and thoughtful, but the ending was not natural nor smooth. And of course, the world felt extremely hollow as a result of the game's theme, so I never felt any motivation to return to any of the levels. But overall, the game was still really good. So this concludes the first part to the best to worst games in the Kingdom Hearts franchise. I'm going to be doing a part 2 showing the lowest ranked games in the Kingdom Hearts franchise. So stay tuned for that too. But if you like this video, go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know, which games do you think should have been number 1, should have been at the bottom? Leave a comment. And hey, if you like my videos and you want to see more of them, go ahead and subscribe. Okay? And again, even if you disagree, all comments are accepted. Just keep it classy.